Thank you everyone for coming tonight. If for all of you who are on Zoom, like it was crazy in Baltimore just like a half an hour ago, and it seemed like it would be impossible to make it here. So I really appreciate you all coming. And yeah, I just like want to thank the BJC for letting me spend the summer here. It's been like such an incredible experience for me. And like the staff, the instructors, and the people that spend time here have made it really invaluable. When I applied to the residency, I was looking for a community, but I gained so much more than that. I got invaluable feedback, support, and friends for life. And I knew the BJC was special, but just spending time here made me realize how very special this place is and how very hard the staff and instructors work to make it that way. So I really thank you guys. It's been a great summer. So I want to start my presentation with the Romantic Tendencies series, which began as an infatuation with tropical imagery. And I'll use this slideshow to explain how it evolved into work dealing with themes of nostalgia, escapism, souvenirs, and personal narratives. I've always been obsessed with real and artificial tropical landscapes. In 2014, I began to explore this confluence of constructed and natural and the gray areas in between. Because I grew up in Maine, I've always romanticized tropical miscellany, even when it's sprouting from unlikely places. And I've always been fascinated by manufactured landscapes. I lived in Houston for a while, and for those who could afford it, turned their backyards into these tropical paradises. So I created this choker out of found rocks and rocks that I molded and cast in different materials. And I started exploring how entire worlds are engineered for our enjoyment, such as Disney World. I was looking at theme parks that were abandoned and overgrown, where nature took over its artificial representation. And so in this new body of work,
Nightmare. Tim, I can't think of his name. I've been down my brain. Who did Nightmare Before Christmas? Burn.
Okay. So, and then I continued to explore artificial landscapes, and I became interested in what elements in real nature were chosen to be translated into the artificial nature we may see in amusement parks or themed restaurants, and how those elements appeal to a collective ideal. I explored how those artificial experiences shape our expectations of the real thing. So I began by creating these billboard-esque scrims over romanticized nature to emphasize our consumption of natural landscapes. So all these pieces, if you've noticed, have funny names, and they're all titled after street signs I've seen that are sort of cobbled descriptors of grandeur for shopping centers and cul-de-sacs such as Buena Valley, Grande Vista, and Coral Ridge. Like the places, the jewelry is a memorial to those natural things we replaced for convenience. And I began to experiment with mirrors, trying to distill elements of beauty in nature, mimicking the ephemeral effects of light and water. And the mirrors also act as a tool to make light of my high expectations of natural beauty. Because when you adorn yourself with this jewelry, the faceted mirrors reflect and distort its surroundings with romantic colors and flashes of light. It's a way to confront disappointment and see nature in a new light when it doesn't live up to our desires. They're kind of like tools to see the world with rose-colored glasses. And I used artificial materials such as plastics and resins to emphasize the fakeness. And in this work, I was interested in icons that exhibit a romantic view of nature. I employed symbols that represent purity and rebirth, such as waterfalls, palm trees, and sunsets. I used a lot of artificial materials, resins, and I electroformed like fake plastic plants for a lot of these pieces, and played around with finishes. And I used icons that are used to create a romantic feeling on TV or are manufactured for themed atmospheres to instill wonder. For example, Dreamland Valley cul-de-sac was inspired by the rock driveway in the Bachelor series, which was sprayed with water every night in order to reflect light and create a romantic feeling on TV. That's not the picture on the right. The picture on the right is a picture I took at the Venetian in Las Vegas, which sort of has a coating over its like fake cobblestone streets to give that like wet look. So for this piece, I tried to sort of replicate that and made a mold of rocks and cast them in just like a little cement and foam. So it's like really surprisingly lightweight. Jewelry can project the value of experience. These pieces tell the world, I'm living my fullest life. They are large and confrontational and attract attention. In this piece too, I used expanding foam and like sort of injected it under this film so it would like puff up in funny ways. Kind of reminded me of like Mermaid Barbie. The ideas I had about the consumption and possession of nature naturally led me to explore the souvenir. It's a way to take a place back with you or to hold onto an experience. I began to create souvenirs from paradise, making a mishmash of the ethnographic jewelry and the mass-produced tchotchkes you might buy there. These ended up being really abject pieces, illustrating the impossibility of representing an experience. They end up being souvenirs for a place that doesn't exist. So I continued to dive into the concept of the souvenir with this series, Ultra Memento. I was interested in the function of the souvenir and my futile attempts to hang on to the past. I'm going to take a sip of water. On a trip to Japan, I was completely mesmerized by koshido, which are essentially lattice doors, often used as fencing between the street and someone's property, separating the passerby from the garden on the other side. I was drawn to the perceptual phenomena of them and how when you walk by, you see a flutter effect of garden and wood panel. To me, it was a metaphor for longing. They act as a barrier between the world you're in and a world you don't belong to. And being able to glimpse through the other side made you long to be there even more. I started trying to translate this experience by making cold connected metal slats that move back and forth and reflect light off of each other. I see them as a boundary between a real and imaginary world. To have something be within reach, but also inaccessible really resonated with me. Internet was unstable. During this time, my parents and I were both coming to terms with the reality of their degenerative diseases. I noticed their frantic push to hang on to the past by sending me home movies one after another. Their nostalgia was contagious, as was their anxiety for the future. I found myself longing for a past I could never relive and obsessing over a future I could not control. As stated by Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the present. So I started making souvenirs of reflection in order to capture past experiences. They're wearable collages illustrating a general narrative of childhood. This series the Ultra Memento series is separated into 2 sections: Souvenirs of Reflection, seen here, which deals with the past, and Souvenirs of Projection, which deals with the future. It is well documented that each time we recall an experience, our mind distorts our memory of it even more. Our intentions for souvenirs are to capture moments. However, they work against this idea, as the narrative we attach to the souvenir is altered over time, aligning with our personal or cultural attitudes or agendas. Souvenirs of reflection end up being souvenirs of a mythical past. By constructing souvenirs of an already idealized and distorted past, I intended for these works to be ambiguous and general enough to appeal to my audience, maybe even working to conjure recollections and fuzzy memories within the viewer. When I was making this series of work, I was going back and forth between working on souvenirs of reflection and souvenirs of projection, seen here, just as one would cycle between feeling depressed and anxious, longing for the past, and feeling anxious about the future. Souvenirs of projection are souvenirs of an unknown and ambiguous future, meant to encourage the wearer to manifest and carry their forthcoming fantasies and anxieties. The forms are obscure and open-ended for the wearer's interpretation of future events. You might recognize this person, Sammy. Yeah. So though souvenirs of projection are manifestations of anxiety, I consider them an optimistic projection of the future. The reflection of the luminescent sticker and resin against polished steel or aluminum creates an undulating glow that distorts with movement. In my work, I conduct many material explorations. I aim for combinations that surprise me and bring me joy. Often there are elements that I can't control, but can be delighted by the outcome. Creating a piece that is, so all of this work is created completely by cold connections, from a flat sheet to a 3D piece. And that keeps the outcome a surprise until the very last moment of creation. I think we're back. Okay. Oh, great. That's about two. Sorry, everyone. Hopefully we're all good. Okay. What?
You can only share the recording.
Yeah. Okay. So creating a piece that is completely cold connected from a flat, oh, I already said that. So not completely knowing the outcome until it's assembled is exciting to me. It motivates me to keep working until it's done. As wearable pieces, these works nod at the historical function of jewelry to contain the symbolic power that connects us to people, histories, and places. Within the context of the body, the work projects the value of lived experience, the wearer's identity, and the means for a spoken narrative or conversation. The use of glittery reflective surfaces illustrates this magic of the past and the sentimental ways it can be idealized when we tell stories about it. As our memories disappear and nostalgic longing idealizes, they become invested with a symbolic aura. Considering the common belief that the key to happiness is to be mindful in the present, I had a difficult time creating souvenirs of reflection because they're pieces that were born out of the insatiable demands of nostalgia, but also work to generate it even more. So then after I completed the Ultra Memento series, I wondered how I could fabricate nostalgia for other people. I wanted to give others the opportunity to create their own souvenirs of a mythical past. So with the help of my husband, we created a virtual jewelry generator where you can fill in drop-down responses to align with a specific memory. So this is what comes up when you go to jewelrygenerator.com. And then the generator will spit out a piece made specifically based on your memory inputs. So I wanted to emphasize this idea that memories are moldable and fluid. And as the gatekeeper to this memory, you have control of how your story's disseminated. You could order the piece if you want a tangible souvenir of this memory, or you can discard your memory and start again. So it's still up, it's on jewelrygenerator.com. Yeah. So then getting into this current series of work, I've gone back and forth with calling it, well, first I called it Kitsch Perfect, but now I'm calling it Sentimental Shortcuts. Yeah, after Ultra Memento, my parents' health continued to decline. And in addition to more family drama, my family narrative sort of began to disintegrate. It was also the pandemic, and I was looking for ways to deal with this excess of uncertainty, fear, anxiety, and sadness. And I wanted to aggressively find joy within my work. I looked for methods to engage in the present. So I began to self-consciously explore kitsch as a means of escape. I wanted to celebrate kitsch with the awareness that its sentimental nature will not sustain happiness. Though the predictability of kitsch provides a sense of comfort and safety in a world that is always changing. I wanted to find solace in the artificial, pre-digested, imagineered, and the ornate, all conditions whose only objective is to be an unapologetic distractor and bearer of joy. In order to emphasize the luminescent qualities of my materials, I first challenged myself to make work that was minimal and clean, which was very difficult for me. I began to use the form of the lazy river as an example of a kitsch experience that is a delightful path of least resistance, a sentimental self-help quick fix to briefly turn one's mood around. In these constructed worlds, one can be mesmerized by beautiful things without thought or wonder. The empty joy they bring is predictable and comfortable, something that many of us long for these days. The works continuously loop, emphasizing the insatiable pursuit of sentimental things. Sentimentality provides emotional satisfaction without emotional connection. It will provide a bump of dopamine, but without the difficult journey to get there, the effect is not lasting, therefore encouraging us to desire it even more. Many people can find joy in the perfection of the fake. Its alignment with and validation of our fantasies makes us continue to desire the facade and wonder it evokes. Then I began to get more complicated in the design and utilize cold connected slats again as a representation of longing and as a way to sort of fabricate luminescent windows to gaze through and to create a glowing effect of this as the surfaces pivot and reflect off of each other. I also experimented with different methods for connecting the pieces and holding in the slats. Here it's all held together by an industrial steel cable, emphasizing the constructed facade in the work. And this piece was designed to conform to the wearer's body with a simple shape, but a complex execution. I created a method for attaching these many pieces with cord and looped wire to produce flexibility. So the right picture is the back of the piece. So then getting into the work I made here at the BJC, I was still interested in having the work conform to the body and shift with movement, but I wanted to arrange more pieces and have them nestle each other in a specific orientation. And I also wanted to create a contrast between the minimal lazy river loop and whatever was spilling out of it. It was definitely a challenge to figure out. And as you can see on the right was sort of my first iteration of that, using like the same cord and loop method as the last piece, Endless Ride. But I ultimately figured out a way to hold these pieces in place with pins and an aluminum back plate, with help, of course, by the great people at BJC. As described before, the nature of the materials forced me to create work in pieces in order to cold connect them, so the final product is always a surprise. The many parts and pieces become a puzzle. The creation of the pieces occupies my mind in a way that is meditative and calming. My fascination with the artificial and thus spaces that bombard you with visual imagery led me to read Umberto Eco's description of them. In his essay, Travels in Hyperreality, Eco describes Americans' craving for opulence, where falsehood is enjoyed in a situation of fullness or horror vacui. Horror vacui is the fear of empty spaces. I consider this another example of arbitrary escape. It's surrounding yourself with things so unwanted things don't creep in. Unwanted thoughts don't creep in. It's a way to foster joy through your surroundings. So I chose images I saved on Instagram as references for this piece because of my nature to turn to my phone when I have a free moment. I'm sure many of you can identify with that. The images I chose align with my fantastical and aspirational needs, like decor, hardcore, and cats and other animals. They reflect an insatiable seeking. And this is like my final piece that I did here. It took most of my residency to make, and it has over 140 pieces that were meticulously produced, all cold connected with fake pearls to an aluminum back plate to create flexibility. In the 19th century, a collective melancholic sense of loss came to fruition. It was popular to collect souvenirs of a made-up Atlantis. Fragments of a lost civilization allowed the collector to fantasize about a past that did not exist, further generating longing for it, which motivated further collecting. This piece comes alive with the movement of the body, captivating the viewer, creating a connection between themselves and the wearer. Each piece suggests an investigation through reflections, illuminations, and the discovery of iconography. Inspiration manifests formally into representations that allow the viewer to see their own fantasies or magic. Perhaps this is my Atlantis as I continue to collect images and objects of fantasy, magic, and joy. Instead of an idealization of the past, such as in the Ultra Memento series, it's an idealization of something that's already idealized. It represents a passive longing and a put on magic. They are representations that fill the void, but also generate it. Thank you. That's the right is that piece in progress. I mean, the left, sorry. And then cats, yeah. All right, so now we'll go look at your work
In the
Okay.
hallway. Is there anyone hitting the lights? I'm gonna snake my way around to you, Sydney. Thanks. Sorry. To make sure. All right. Okay.
Okay. You were the right amount.
We love what Leslie did with her display.
What, and not really. Like,
You're getting some compliments. So good. Oh yeah.
it's kind of tricky in this light.
Kelly Temple says Leslie Luminescence is my new favorite. I believe she means phrase. I just don't see all of it. That's great. I like it. Kelly.
Susan says, you are amazing, Leslie. The play of color and light in your work, the lights and I want to keep looking at.
Oh.
So great. Thank you, Susan.
I want Maria to come out here because she has
Oh, yeah.
the Lazy River piece.
Yeah.
So this is the piece with it's 100. It's over 140, right?
Yeah.
It's your gross 144. 144. So good.
Yeah.
It just changes with every shift. Maria, do you mind being on camera? Okay. So Maria is wearing one of Leslie's pieces. Elaine also owns one. She's not wearing it, but hers is a little more blue. They both.
Yes. Mine is blue.
Yeah, what's it look like there? A little purple. I think there was a comment about wanting to see and touch it. Is that what someone said? Oh yeah.
So is Susan Craig. Mallory says that necklace is bonkers.
Thanks, Valerie.
This is a great adjective night. So many good adjectives.
Ashley Van McClellan says that was gorgeous. Carrie Ann says, cannot wait to see Tipsy's in person.
Oh, yeah. She'll be here soon.
Oh, could we show the back?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, and someone wanted to see the mount.
Oh,
Kelly.
Okay, here's the mount. And then, so here's the front of the piece. And then the back, it's all these aluminum panels and then held together with fake pearls.
So
It's very
great.
flexible.
Wear that both ways.
You could.
True, yeah.
You could.
Yeah. It's a
Either way.
real lovely play on the pearl necklace. Yeah, that when Leslie came up with that resolution, it was just such it was an exciting thing to watch happen.
Well, shout
Very
out
hard
to
to do.
Stephen KP, who suggested trying out pearls, and I did. It was a great solution.
It works thematically
Yay.
so well. Can you tell us why you use aluminum?
I began using aluminum because I was working really big, and it's super lightweight, and I could get it laser cut. So this back plate is all aluminum, and it polishes really well too. And I got this back plate laser cut, so I didn't have to saw it out. Yeah,
Cool.
Mallory wants to know about the piece that you're wearing.
oh yes.
Take your time. It's
Trying to
okay.
put this back on.
It's good to see how long it takes to melt.
Yeah, this piece I sort of made at the last minute here, and it actually, you can't really kind of the black part kind of blends into my shirt, so it's just like a smaller brooch, and it's a smaller version of this, and I actually started making it for Andy's critical discourse class, because we were supposed to start making a new piece, and I wanted to challenge myself to make something that didn't take as long as this piece. And yeah. It's more of like a puddle form instead of a lazy river form. And instead of the interior being black, the interior is luminescent, and then the exterior, everything spilling out is black.
Oh, good call, Andy.
Oh,
Do you want to show off the one or both of the brooches? Or
Sure.
were there any other questions? Thanks, Andy. Sorry, weird moment.
I like being away.
It's such a nice little snack size of the necklace.
I'm having trouble. Okay, yeah. There we go.
The back?
Oh, the back, yes.
Oh, they're like, what are those?
These were made out of like a 2-part epoxy putty.
Oh, so you made them.
And then, yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Before I figured out that I can buy beads.
I don't know
I
where you buy
made
those
these
though.
and like, yeah, it took a long time.
They're great.
But yeah, there's that. This one.
And this is the one where you figured out that back plate. Right.
Yeah, this was sort of the first one that I made, the first test. Yeah, and this one is made out of, the front pieces are made out of steel instead of copper, so that's why they kind of look, they sort of have a rainbow heat patina in the dark areas. Mhm.
Are there other questions before I ask one?
Not right now.
I mean, your process, and those of us who were here got to see it, like how you really plan out the sort of like almost like watercolor sectionality of the pieces. Could you talk about that? Are you okay talking about that?
Yeah. So I made it all in Rhino, which is like a computer program to design pieces, and just in 2D. So I started off by like sketching the piece, and then I ended up making it on the computer, like all the designs, because then I could plan out where all the holes would go, and where the film would go, because like this part doesn't have film, but then this outside part has film. So I had everything sort of planned out before I drilled the holes and cut it out and everything.
Because like this piece, that's a piece right there,
Yeah.
and part of it have no film, part
Yeah.
has film. Okay.
Yeah. So I could use the template and like print it on like clear sticky paper and put it on the metal, so I could figure out where the holes went and where the film went, and where it would have patina, the black patina, and where it would like kind of match up with the other pieces. It was also like kind of tricky to figure out, because the pieces, like the pins in each piece kind of hold the back plate together, because that's not connected, that's only connected by the top pieces that have pins in them. So I'm trying to
It's
figure
like
out-
engineering. It's so complex.
But I still like, it was still tricky. Like some pieces kind of move a little more than I wanted to, but I was able to kind of fix that with another little piece in the back. But yeah, it was kind of a learning process for sure.
Margot asks, what is the role of light and dark in these pieces?
Light and dark. Well, I have, it's a continuation of the series that uses the lazy river, right? And so I wanted to use the same lazy river form, And I was thinking about the light and dark as being like order and chaos and something that's contained and spilling out, like when we're talking about filling your life with things, you know, is the chaos of that, but it's also like luminescent, so it's kind of joyful. The dark could also be like kind of the void I was talking about. Could be a lot of things.
I love the little things peeking out, like little snaky guy, little dolphin tail. There's like one or two horse-like things too.
Does anybody want to try it on?
Mhm.
Yes.
Having
Oh,
run
sorry.
into the tropics and-
Someone
Yeah.
from Florida.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Really
Sydney, are you like this where it speaks to me?
Also, I also wanted to share like that sense of like engineering like a false location is like, it's something, yeah, the painter Richard Corn's Ocean Park series,
Oh,
named after the industrial park he had a studio in.
I'll have to get that. Yeah, yeah.
This feels very right.
I told you, you have a good collarbone.
Yeah. Actually, can I try wearing it the other way too?
Yeah, of course. We'll see how that works.
And match my top too. Also, I have to say the catch is really easy to use. Oh yeah, I love that.
That's awesome.
Didn't know you were making it reversible, but you did.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but it works either way. It's just depend on the mood that you're in.
I also feel like the girls are this kind of like sensory experience with the work.
Yeah.
They can massage you.
Yeah, it can be very,
There's a weight to
very
that.
And they have their own like kid sentimentality. as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially fake pearls.
and this is they really come to life against dark clothes. Yeah, they really pop. Yeah, I kind of wish I was wearing this all.
Anybody else? Elliot, were there any other questions or comments?
Stacy Pearl Peterson says,
Thanks.
Thanks, Henry.
There's lots of complimentary statements in that. Great job.
Thanks, everyone.
It was so wonderful to see everything in the slideshow too. Like I haven't seen all of your, I mean, I know that there's more work. I haven't seen all of those. So and to hear about the naming was really exciting. Well, if there's no other questions or comments, thank you so much, Leslie, for just giving so much of yourself while you're here and dedicating to making such exquisite work that we now get to live with for a couple of weeks. Even as you leave, we get to keep a little bit of you for a little while.
Yeah, and you'll find pieces of me everywhere.
Um,
Don't worry about that. Yeah.
And thank you all so much for coming out tonight. It's so wonderful to have an audience on Zoom. I know that the connection has been a bit unstable. We do have a recording. If you'd like the recording, shoot us an email at info@baltimorejewelrycenter.org and we can send you the recording. Again, that's info at baltimorejewelrycenter.org. Have to put in a plug for making a donation if you so wish and so can to the BJC. All of our programs, especially our residency program, is very much supported by gifts from our generous community. And we love this program so much. It's so exciting. We have many people on the call tonight, I think 4 or 5, who are past or future residents. So that's really wonderful. Again, thank you all. Send us an email if you want a recording, and we hope to see you at another event. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.